Welcome to Unit 4. My name is Rita, and we're going to continue reading English for academic purposes. So let's begin. So the learning strategies that we're going to be reviewing today are going to be pre-reading, okay? We're going to continue practicing pre-reading. We're going to look at the eye-catching features. We are going to do some scanning, אנחנו נסרוק גם כן את הטקסט היום. We're going to look at the components of research, כן, את הרכיבים של מחקר. We are going to look at the writer's purpose. We're going to look at comparison and contrast, cause and result, and also we're going to look at or for the writer's opinion. כן, אנחנו נחפש את דעתו של הכותב. So now let's go to our objectives. כן, מה המטרות שלנו באופן ספציפי, okay? So in this text, you will learn about, what are we going to learn about? We are going to learn about an early study of twins. We are going to review components of a research. We're going to look at comparison and contrast, cause and effect, and the writer's purpose. Okay, now even more specifically, we're going to go to our first lesson, and at the beginning, as usual, we're going to be focusing on our pre-reading, קריאה. We're going to be looking at the eye-catching features in our specific text. כן, אנחנו נסתכל ונתמקד בדברים שתופסים את העין בטקסט. We're going to look at the title, the first sentence of paragraph 1 in this text, and we're going to look at the source. Okay, where the text comes from. We're going to look at the sentence under the title. We're going to do some scanning. We're going to see some information about Sir Francis Galton, and we're going to focus on vocabulary. All this in our first lesson. Okay. So let's begin. As usual, we always begin with the pre-reading, and this text, as opposed to previous text, is pretty short. We only have 4 paragraphs, okay? So now let's look at what are our eye-catching features. מהם אותם פריטים שאנחנו נסתכל עליהם כדי לנסות לקבל מושג מה הנושא של הטקסט שלנו. So we have the title here. We have the sentence under the title. We're going to look at the first sentence of the text, okay, in this specific case. And we also have the source, okay, where the text comes from. Now we're going to go deeper into the eye-catching features and really get as much information as we can out of them. So we have the title. The title is called Twins, an Early Study. Now, the word twins, תאומים, okay, and an early study actually means מחקר מוקדם, okay? So again, when you have 2 words together in English, we usually translate from the last word and we go in the opposite direction. So the word study here means מחקר, okay? An early study, מחקר מוקדם. So we're going to be reading about an early study, okay, that was done on twins. Now let's look at the first sentence of paragraph 1. Remember, a lot of the times the beginning of the text reinforces, מחזק את המידע שאנחנו מקבלים בכותרת. So let's read the first sentence together. The first scientific attempt to study the mental abilities of twins was made by Francis Galton. Okay? So let's focus here again on the words to study. To study means לחקור. Now remember, you already know probably the words to study במובן של ללמוד. Okay? But in academic texts, usually studies actually mean מחקרים. So just keep that in mind when you're reading the text. Okay? Now it says here at the beginning of the sentence, the first scientific attempt, כן? הניסיון המדעי הראשון לחקור תאומים, okay? נעשה על ידי גלטון. Now this sentence mirrors the title, כן? זה משקף את הכותרת. כי כאן חוזרים ואומרים לנו שאנחנו הולכים לקרוא טקסט על הניסיון המדעי הראשון לחקור תאומים. Now let's look at the source and let's see what additional information we get from the source. So in the source, we have the writers' names, okay? It's Newman, Freeman, and Heltzinger from 1937. Now this text is a pretty old text, okay? But remember, we're talking about one of the first scientific studies of twins. So that's fine. Now let's look at the name of the book, where this comes from. It comes from a book called Twins, a study of heredity and environment. Okay. Now, these are two major concepts, two important words. Okay, it comes from a book that studies heredity, תורשה, and the environment, סביבה. So whenever you get these two words, heredity and the environment, כן, סביבה ותורשה, זה נושא מאוד מאוד חשוב, וכדאי לחשוב על זה בזמן שאתם ממשיכים וקוראים את הטקסט. Okay, so now let's also look at the sentence under the title. Okay, and we also have a question here. It says here, why have researchers conducted studies on twins? Okay. Now, the word conduct is important. It's also connected to research. כן, זה קשור למחקר. It means לערוך. Okay, so why have researchers conducted studies on twins? מה הסיבה שחוקרים עורכים מחקרים על הנושא של תאומים? So we're going to pause right now and try and look for the reason. תחפשו את הסיבה במשפט מתחת לכותרת. Okay, so now let's look at the answer. Okay, so notice the verb examining, כן? לחקור או לבחון. So why have researchers conducted studies on twins? Okay, because they want to examine the complex influences of heredity and the environment on the development of a wide range of human characteristics and behavior. Okay? So remember, when we're looking for what is the reason that researchers have conducted studies, they want to do something, רוצים לבחון משהו או לבדוק משהו, אז תחפשו את הפעלים. במקרה הזה לנו את המילים examining, חוקרים. Okay? And then also we also have the correct answer on the board. Okay, so again, we're looking at twin studies because twin studies can give us a lot of information about the influences of heredity and the environment. So if we take the sentence under the title, we can also look at it in the form of a chart, כן? In a more visual manner. אפשר לבדוק את זה בצורה קצת יותר ויזואלית. So twin studies might answer questions about behavior or traits and characteristics, כן? אם אנחנו רוצים לבחור או לבחון בעצם את המקור להתנהגות אנושית או לתכונות אנושיות, אוקיי? אז חוקרים באמת תאומים. Now, the question usually is, what affects us more? Okay? What affects human beings more? Is it heredity, האם זה תורשה? Or is it the environment, okay? Our education, our culture, the way that we were raised, כן? האופן שבו גידלו אותנו, התרבות שלנו. And through twin studies, researchers are trying to explain and understand what affects us more, heredity or the environment. Or if you remember from our first unit, which was a long time ago, we also had the words nature versus nurture. It's the same debate. אותה מחלוקת, מה משפיע עלינו יותר. Okay, so one other thing that we're going to be doing in our pre-reading, בקדם קריאה שלנו, is scanning the text. עכשיו, לפעמים מבקשים מכם לסרוק את הטקסט כדי למצוא דברים שבולטים לעין. איזה דברים בולטים לעין? דברים כמו מספרים, תאריכים, שמות של אנשים. Okay? So right now, I want you to focus and scan the text and look for a name that is repeated. כן? השם שחוזר על עצמו. תחפשו את זה בתוך הטקסט. We're going to pause now for a second and quickly scan the text and find the name that's repeated. Okay, so as you can see, the name Francis Galton already jumps up. We've already read this in the first sentence of the text. Now, if you keep on looking throughout the text, the name Galton appears many, many times, okay? So this, of course, tells us that we will be focusing on an early study of twins that was conducted by Francis Galton. And remember the name Francis Galton because he's an important person in the field of twin studies and actually in other fields as well. So let's get some more information about this famous researcher. Now here we have a picture. As you can see, it's from a previous century. Okay, so Sir Francis Galton lived from 1822 to 1911. So he had a long and very fruitful life. He was an anthropologist, a scientist, an inventor, and an explorer. So he did a lot of things in his life. Now, what's relevant for us and for our text is that he studied identical twins, חקר תאומים זהים, to see what role heredity and the environment play. כן, כדי לבדוק מה התפקיד של תורשה מול סביבה, okay, in human behavior and characteristics. So he wanted to know what was more important to human behavior and human characteristics. Was it heredity or the environment? And actually, Galton also coined the phrase nature and nurture. אז הוא אותו איש שטבע את המושגים טבע מול טיפוח, or nature and nurture. Okay, so now we get to some important vocabulary. כן, לאוצר מילים שיהיה חשוב בשביל קריאת הטקסט שלנו. So, which words relate to differences and which words relate to similarities? So we're going to be focusing on differences. אנחנו נתמקד בהבדלים, okay? And we're going to also focus on similarities, הבדלים ודמיון, כן? כי אנחנו מדברים פה על תאומים זהים ועל תאומים לא זהים, גם את זה יש. Okay, so now let's look over the list of words. And then you're going to think about which words do you think talk about differences and which words talk about similarity. So we have the list, the word distinct, alike, dissimilar, distinguish, identical, likeness, resemblance, and unlike. So now pause and try and see which words belong to differences or similarities. Okay, so now let's see how we can categorize the words. So let's look at all the words that mean differences. The word dissimilar. Now, the prefix התחילית dis הרבה פעמים הופך את מילת הבסיס. כלומר, similar דומה, dissimilar means לא דומה. Okay, so that can help us later on. The word distinct. Distinct means מובחן. אם זה מובחן, כמובן, זה שונה. זה ייחודי, זה מובחן. So again, this word means differences. To distinguish. Now, I don't know if you remember, but actually in our second unit, we had this word already, which appeared, distinguish, זה להבדיל או להבחין בין שני דברים. So again, it belongs to differences. And the last word means unlike. Unlike means לא כמו או לא דומה. Okay? Good. Now let's look at the other side. So whatever's left, of course, are the similarities, but we're going to go over them together. Alike. Alike means similar, דומה, alike. Okay? The word identical means זהה. So if two things are identical, of course, they're similar. We have the word likeness. Likeness, again, is another word for דמיון. משהו שדומה אחד לשני. Okay? And the word resemblance, which we will see a lot in this text, resemblance also means דמיון.